Want the reward? Do the damn work. Challenge yourself. Inspire change. Choice, not luck. Good afternoon, everybody. Todd Crandell with another episode of Ignite Euphoria, and I am pleased to have one Kelly O'Mara with us today. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have the roles reversed. You interviewed me a while ago for triathlete, and now I'm doing it for Racing for Recovery.
For sure.
So you are a couple things I just want the listeners to know right off the bat. In addition to being an awesome person, you are the editor-in-chief. Is that the correct title?
Yes.
Okay, I had to get the chief in there, right?
Right. That's the key part.
Right. The editor-in-chief or the head honcho at Triathlete Magazine, which is awesome. And you are a triathlete yourself.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so we got both of those covered. What do I want to start with? Let's talk about your position at Triathlete Magazine and what that entails.
Sure. So triathlete has been around for a long time, almost since the sport started. But at this point, we're part of a much larger company. We're part of Outside, which owns Outside Magazine, which a lot of people know, obviously. We also, the larger company owns Velo News, which a lot of people are familiar with, Trail Runner Magazine, that kind of thing. So our little triathlete brand is just this little tiny part. Obviously, we're much, triathlon, as I'm sure you're aware, is a much smaller thing than running or cycling or backpacking. So
it's less than backpacking?
Oh, I mean, think about how many people hike and go on camping trips and all that kind of thing.
I'm pondering that right now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get. So are triathletes at the bottom of the numbers?
No. We're not. I mean, we're not. We're very important. Obviously, I'm just saying in the scheme of the size of things.
Yeah.
Triathlon's obviously pretty small. So
this is relative. How has triathlon grown since you've come into only as an athlete and also as being involved with Triathlete Magazine? How have you seen it grow?
Sure. When I started, I did it in college. And so back then, I don't know if you guys remember, Tri California was like the race director out in, I went to school in California, is the race director out there. And they were considered like the big corporate company. And now they're considered like the small local one because obviously like Ironman's gotten really big. So it's just very funny to see kind of, back in the day, there was this race where people like, it was in somebody's backyard, like that was the big race in town. So it's obviously gotten a lot bigger. I think, I remember volunteering at things that were, the iron distance event for the whole area. And now, there's dozens and dozens of Ironman events. I think there's like 140 70.3s in the world. And that's literally been in the last 10 years. A 70.3 didn't even exist as a distance when I start, right? Like that wasn't a thing. So that's been really interesting. There was this period where I just like kind of, I don't know, quit this, you know what I mean? Like I went and did other things for a couple of years. I didn't really do triathlon. And I came back and it was so competitive. Like 4 years, like it had just gotten very, very intense, like very competitive in that time. Which is great, but also been just like really interesting to watch. So
well, we're kind of sliding towards the triathlon thing for a minute, so let's stay with this. How did you become a triathlete? Give us your story on how you got into this lifestyle.
So I didn't really know how to ride a bike. I didn't ride a bike, but I ran in high school and I probably would have run in college, but I had mono. So you can't walk onto a team or get with mono. And so when I was like, hey, I'm better, like I want to try something. I tried a lot of different things. And then like my boyfriend at the time, husband now, was on the triathlon team. And Todd, I like went and like secretly practiced swimming and biking because I was like embarrassed, to like, I was like, I gotta get better before I come out. But the college tri, and this is like, I did club college tri, not, like what is the NCAA effort now. So club college tri is obviously like, it's not NCAA, right? Anyone can show up. Like you can show up, you don't know how to ride a bike. I didn't know how to ride a bike and I showed up. So it's really, really fun. If anyone, doesn't know about the club college scene, it's super fun, super welcoming. And so that's kind of how I got into it at Berkeley. And Berkeley has a really good team. If you know anything kind of about the big college club teams, they kind of take you under their wing, teach you how to do everything. And so that's how I started. And then I raced a little bit after college. I would say, I think like that kind of after college, mid 20s, late 20s, and the sport is still like this, like there's really a hole, like there isn't a lot. So there aren't other people your age. There isn't really like a thing for you. And I think a lot of people kind of disappear for a while there. They start working, they start doing other stuff. And that happened to me too. And then I came back 5-6 years ago. I wanted to do an Ironman before I turned 30. That was my idea. Yeah. So I did an Ironman, and then I actually started racing with just some college kids again while I was doing a grad school program. And that was really fun again, right? Because that was really like, oh yeah, there's people I like. You know what I mean? Like there was people around again, whereas all through your 20s, like there just hadn't been people my age. And so racing with the college kids again was really fun. It was just, it wasn't super. I mean, it was super serious, but you know what I'm saying? It was also like, and then we go out for drinks after, and so I just like had a lot of fun, and that helped me get back into it. And so it's been like a lot more fun this time around, I guess, like a lot more, you know what I'm saying? Like you got to find your group of people. Yeah.
What all have you done? I mean, you mentioned an Ironman. Did you do Ironman Boulder?
No, I don't do great at elevation. Like,
Okay.
I did Ironman Canada as my first one back when it was in Whistler. It's not there anymore.
Back to the original spot, right?
Right. Now it's back to Penticton, and which sounds really awesome, but I can't get into Canada right now. So
Right.
right. And then I did Wisconsin, which I love Wisconsin. I don't know if anyone's, it's by far my favorite. And that qualified me for Kona. So I've done Kona. And then after doing Kona, I actually took my elite license because I thought it like I'd qualified a number of times for it. I was like winning the age group race, and so I wanted to move up and challenge myself. And I also do think it's really important. I wanted to give other people a chance to win the age group too. If that makes sense.
It does. Well, I understand it. I've never done that, so I don't know what that feels like, but I understand what you're saying. And as you're speaking right there, I'm thinking, well, I need her to coach me to get better at this stuff. What was qualifying and doing Kona like for you?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I don't know, I mean, maybe other people have had this experience, but I basically came out of grad school, and I had this kind of, I had some work lined up, but I didn't have it. So I was like, I have 3 months till Ironman Wisconsin. I went to my coach at the time. I found a coach. I knew her. And I was like, look, I'll do whatever you say for 3 months. Let's see how this goes, right? Like, let's see if I can get better, right? Like, let's see how much I can improve. And I think I skipped like 2 workouts in 3 months. You know what I mean? Like I did everything. And so I went into Wisconsin. I was over an hour faster than the Ironman I had done a year before. If that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just solid, consistent training, doing everything. I had a huge improvement, like massive improvement. And at the time, this like varies, but that year Ironman Wisconsin didn't have a pro field. And I'm in the 30, or I was in the 30, 34 age group, which is a very competitive. So you're basically at the front of the race then, which is, I don't know, really, really fun. Like I highly recommend it. Right.
That's great.
So people are cheering for you. I would think it was like me and one other girl were kind of the first people up like the big hill in Wisconsin. And so there's all these people out in costumes, and you're like the first 2 women, and they're screaming, and it's super fun. Like I always joke, like you ever get the chance, like highly recommend it. Like it's just really like, and I think I like didn't stop laughing all day. You know what I mean? Like it was just really fun. And so Kona like wasn't my goal, if that makes sense, going into that. I just was like, hey, I want to just do everything I can training wise, go in knowing I'm really, really fit, and see what I'm like. I wanted to break 11 hours at the time. Like that was and I broke it by a lot, but, and my parents, I don't, my aunt and uncle lived like a mile away from the course, and my parents had driven up, and so they're all like out there. So it was just like probably the most fun I've ever had at a race. So
It's interesting. I, by no stretch of the imagination, am I obviously downgrading doing Kona, okay? Because I can hear all the triathletes out there going, what are you talking about? But it seems like, and this is not the right word either, but it's the word that comes to mind. I don't want to call it anticlimactic, but it's almost like an afterthought, or it doesn't, you're really focusing on what got you there and the work you put into getting there, as opposed to what it was like to do what you actually worked so hard to get there for. If that, you know what I'm asking you?
oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a interesting perspective, because most people would start talking about doing the actual Kona event, and you're talking about all the excitement of doing the other one that got you there.
Well, I gotta say, Wisconsin was way more fun than Kona. Kona's not, I mean, I'm sure people love it, but it's brutal, right? Like, it's not fun out there on the Queen K. You do it for other reasons, you know, you do it for the experience and for the challenge and for all of that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I wonder if this was like it for you. When you're running, it's one thing to bike the Queen K, you know, right. But whatever. So you start running, the thrill of running on Halihi Drive, both out and back, is amazing. But once you turn on the Queen K for that run out there, boy, that is a whole other mindset, isn't it?
Oh, it's empty. I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty empty out there. So
the word you use, empty, right there would describe it to a T. And that's where the mental fortitude comes in to this, which I think is applicable to life in general. You know, when you have a goal, it's your mindset that's going to get you there. And definitely that last, 16 miles or whatever of that run is all mental, for sure. Was that experience like that for you out there?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm sure lots of it, this isn't like unique. I had like heat stroke. And so I remember I tell a lot of people the story, but I went through an aid station around mile 15 or 16. And I went through it and I just like projectile vomited, just everywhere. And I remember, and I literally, you know, you're out of it. I was standing there and I was like, I guess I'm done. Like, I just literally was thinking like, I guess I'm not finishing, right? Like, I don't know what else. And this girl running by just yelled, I don't even know her. She just yelled, keep going, come on. And I was like, okay, she says I should keep going. I guess I'll keep, it was, you know how you're so out of it, like someone else. I literally thought, well, she seems like she knows what I should do. Okay. And so I just kept running. And I mean, at that point, it really was like, just make it to that gas station up there, make it to that intersection. Like, for 3 miles, all I want to do is like make it to the special needs bags, right? And then it was just like, just make it to that. And it was just like step by step. I mean, I ended up I actually did. Oh, I mean, I got passed in the last 2 miles, but I ended up actually doing okay. I was like 10th in my age group, but in the time, for me personally, in my head, it was like, just finish, just get to each step along the way. Because that's all you can really do, for sure.
So you've done it once, did you say, right?
Yeah, I did it once, and then I took my elite license and I raced pro for a couple of years. I haven't done an Ironman now in 3 or 4 years. So,
any desire to do any Ironman again?
I'm doing one in 2 weeks. So
okay, which one?
Doing Coeur d'Alene in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Which should be really, I'm actually really, it should be really fun. It was supposed to be my first one. When I did Canada instead, I had an accident and had to, transfer. It's supposed to be a great course. I have a ton of friends doing it, so it should be really, really fun.
The swim is cold out there. I know that. I did it the first year they had it, or maybe the second. That race hasn't gone on for quite some time at the full distance. Yeah, it's been missing
for a while. So a friend and I were just texting, did you know there's 7,000 feet of climbing? Like, what?
Right. It's beautiful out there, though, as you know. It'll be good. So one thing you mentioned earlier about when you first got into this, that you were biking and swimming on your own to get ready. Right. And it's I'm curious as to your mindset of doing that, because triathletes are very welcoming, supportive. You just talked about that, about the girl on the run course, keep going, whatever. It's very supportive, yet it's like that sense of self-esteem or whatever, or I'm not good enough for this yet, that we tend to say, well, I'll do some of this on my own first. And I wonder, now that you've been in the sport, if somebody was coming into this, how you would help them see that it's everybo's accepted at whatever level they're at.
Yeah, I mean, for sure now, I mean, I've had a ton of friends, not in like not triathlon friends, where I'm the person they know that does triathlon. So they ask me like they want to do their first race, their first half, their first Ironman, whatever. And so I've had a ton of friends ask me, and they're always very nervous about it. Like you say, they're like, well, I don't want to show up and be, and I mean, you're now, right now you're like, no, like you can show up. It's fine. No one can, like, it's not a big deal. Like you can't get dropped in the pool. Like that's not a thing. So it doesn't matter. Everyone, you show up on a group, I mean, obviously like there are group rides you don't want to show up to in the world. Like there are men's cycling group rides I still don't show up to.
Right.
But you show up with friends to ride, like no one's going to drop you. It's fine. Like, obviously, that now. And that's what I tell all these people that always ask me about coming out. But for sure at the time in college, thinking like, oh, I want to go out for the college club team. My last experience had been on like a high school swim team where I wasn't like in shape going in, and it was very terrible. It was terrible. It was not pleasant. And I felt, like I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up with the intervals. The coach was mean, all those things. And so I was obviously, like, well, I'm going to get in shape first and then show up. So,
right.
Right.
How has being a triathlete helped you be a better writer working at Triathlete Magazine? I mean, how is being involved in this, I call it the lifestyle, how's this lifestyle helped you be better at your profession?
I actually was reading a study yesterday. I should send this to you about, it was a doctorate study on triathlon and academic success. It was all about like what lessons people apply. Because there are certainly, I mean, I actually wrote something about this earlier this year, kind of what lessons we can learn from triathlon and endurance sports generally that apply to life. And there are a ton, about like all the things we learn about like problem solving, taking things one step at a time, like dealing with whatever comes up. I also think there's a lot of things you learn that probably you shouldn't apply to life, right? Like pushing through injuries, like taking things too serious, all that stuff, right? Yeah. So, it's a mixed bag. I think sometimes I also think, I mean, I don't think you could be the editor triathlete and not do triathlon. Like you have to know the community, but for sure too, sometimes like it's a small community and I'm trying to think how to say it, but like we can get very fishbowled, right? About, what's important, what's not important. So
what's the hardest lesson you've learned by being a triathlete?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, now I'm like thinking about, because usually it's kind of like there's this whole, I always joke, there's this whole thing where like you have to problem solve in races, right? Like you have to be like, okay, is this a problem I need to fix? How do I fix it? Can I fix it? What do I do? Right. And that's like very, very useful. But then my husband makes me, what you also learn sometimes from that is like to just ignore certain things, right? Like this isn't something I'm going to deal with right now. I'm just not going to worry about it. And then in life, obviously, there are things you should not ignore. Like you shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm just going to ignore that. It's not a problem. Like, whereas, in actual life, you probably should not ignore like the pain in your leg and keep running.
True. That's immediate.
That, yeah.
Yeah. I think all of us have learned that lesson the hard way, right? That mentality of, just work through it usually doesn't work.
Right. Right.
Do you think you could be a writer at Triathlete had you not been or are not a triathlete? Is that a prerequisite?
Well, we certainly have writers who are not, to be clear. Like we have writers who like their expertise is in health or nutrition or something else, for sure. So so that happens. But most of our editors, even if they're not, I mean, we don't like hire people based on their speed or anything like that would be crazy, but they like know and understand the community. And that is definitely important. Because if you don't, understand the community, then like what you're saying doesn't necessarily make sense or resonate.
True. I'm just thinking of these. I never, script these questions out. They come to me as I'm going. What's been the most, and sounds like not a good question to ask, but what's the most extraordinary or thought-provoking story you've covered, and why was it?
It's interesting. In terms of people, like different people stories, there's been like all kinds of crazy there are lots of interesting people in triathlon. One that comes to mind immediately just because it was kind of funny. It's a friend of mine did set the FKT, fastest known time. You know what that means? Like on on the long trail in Vermont. And I like knew about this because she's a friend of mine. But I wrote about it and it went kind of viral. It weirdly went because she had like eaten Taco Bell on the trail because that was like the only thing she could stomach, and it got like picked up by ESPN and also, and so all it was just really that was just really interesting, like what people focus on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I hadn't heard of that. It's the fastest known.
Oh, FKTs are they blew up last year because there were no races. It's called like the fastest known time. So it means like I did the Grand Canyon rim to rim, is a very popular one, right? The fastest time anyone knows, right? And this has become a much bigger. It used to be like you had to have somebody like, right? Like it was like you just told someone what your watch said. But now, obviously, with GPS and Strava and all that, you can record it, and there's an official process to like document your FKT, and they are quite competitive. Some of them, that are popular and well known, like the Grand Canyon one is very. Like, I think the guy who has the FKT for the Grand Canyon, I mean, it's crazy. He like went there and back in like 5 hours or something. So, wow. Yeah.
It's crazy. That's one thing I've realized in this. It's no matter what you've done, somebody's done something more.
Right, exactly.
Right? And it's not just more on a little level. It's this thing that you're like, what? But nothing surprises me anymore, what people are doing in this.
Oh, no.
It's a testament to the human spirit and the motivation behind why people are doing what they're doing.
For sure. And I think last year people came up with a lot of their own challenges, right? Because we didn't have races. And so a lot of people came up with, their own. This is why FKTs got popular last year, but like they came up with their own like routes and made up challenges and things to do. So.
Did going through, the epidemic, or God, I'm so tired of using that word, but
pandemic, yeah.
Right, whatever it is, going through all that, did it alter your lifestyle at all? Did it?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Obviously, like there was a long period there where I didn't see. I mean, I think everyone had this, right, where you didn't see as many people as you normally would see. You didn't, other than on Zoom, you didn't have like the regular kind of groups, like training groups or races or events or travel, all that stuff. So it was definitely like less people. Once we shifted to working from home, like if you had already worked from home, which I had in the past, then you kind of, it wasn't that, you know what I'm saying? Like you still were able to go, like you still trained and then you worked from home. I think for people who, like the thing they did was hang out at nightclubs, it probably changed their life more, but we could keep training. And so it wasn't as big a deal for sure.
Yeah. I found that too. It didn't alter really what I was doing. I still did the same stuff, but you're right. Like the interaction with other human beings, that is one thing I noticed that I missed a lot. I mean, not drinking and hanging out in clubs anymore, for me was like, well, I don't do that anymore, but just the interaction of people, even at Racing for Recovery, our support group meetings, we actually just got them started last night again. Was the first time in almost a year and a half that we had our support group meetings. And that's what started this whole thing. And it got to the point where we were getting used to not having them.
Right.
So now to have people starting to come back in and you're not wearing a spacesuit or anything around people, it's been refreshing again to get back to somewhat normalcy.
I think there's also, I mean, this is like a joke, but I think people, it's also true. Like there's an amount where a lot of us have also forgot like how to do social interactions. Like
Yeah.
I was at something and trying to arrange like let's meet here, like let's and it just, it was so complicated. And I was like, was it always this complicated to make plans with somebody? And then you're like, yeah, I think it was. I think we just forgot how to do it.
Right. Do you so what stories are you working on now with triathlete? What's coming up and what's interesting?
Sure. I mean, the Olympics is coming up. If you don't know that, which is huge, and I don't know if anyone's been following it, but the final qualification is kind of happening right now. They'll announce the team on Wednesday, and it's super interesting because some people, in this year extra really changed the landscape. Some people have qualified and popped up and won and are even now like medal favorites who a year ago like might not have made the team. Which is just, I think, super, super interesting. And so we've been following that a lot. And a number of the people making the team are here in Boulder. I like see them all the time. And so, and I'm rooting for them. And so, we've been obviously following that. And we're putting together our Olympics issue right now, magazine issue. So that'll be hitting everybody in the next like 4 weeks, June, to kind of like lay out what you should watch, how you should, follow it, all that stuff. And I know it's not like it could still get, but I think the Olympics, I'm pretty excited about the Olympics. I think it'll be fun.
It's good to see at least things are going on. And since we started talking, I realize how narrow my mindset is with triathlon in general. Like when you were talking about college teams, it's like, well, I was never on one. I don't know much about them. And now you're talking about the Olympic stuff and everything. Obviously, I know about the triathlon being involved in the Olympics, but if it's not Ironman or half Ironman distance, it's like, I'm not in tune with it. And listening to you, I'm like, I got to broaden my own involvement with this sport of ours,
I mean, it used to be called ITU style and they've changed their name now. But the Olympic level racing, I mean, a lot of people don't follow it until the Olympics happen. So you have to, explain, like it's different. It's draft legal. There's strategy. There's a relay this year that has a whole different strategy to it. So, sorry, it's a weird relay. It's each person does a mini triathlon and then hands on to the next person. So there's like all this. So, we do actually spend a lot of time trying to like let people understand how that all works and get them kind of the information they need for sure.
That's good. You mentioned earlier, I think if I heard you correctly, was it 120 70.3s that are around the world now?
Yeah, it's something like that. It might be, it's around that. And I only know that because somebody asked me recently, but yeah, it's up there.
And it seems that is becoming the popular,
it's the most popular
distance.
Yeah.
When I got into it, just like you, they were calling it the half Ironman. I don't even know if that term is allowed anymore, but that was the term back then. And at one point I had a goal of doing all the Ironmans and all the halves, and it was attainable. And that went out the window a few years ago. It's just, the whole thing has exploded, but it's good to see people getting into it at the half Ironman distance.
Oh yeah. I heard a story one time, that when they launched the 70.3, the first one was actually, they had decided on this 70.3 name. But then they launched, the first one was actually in Europe. 70.3 doesn't mean anything. It's not like the miles, right? So they're like, do this thing with this name that doesn't make sense. This was the Ironman CEO saying this, like joking, to this world championship race that we haven't decided where it's going to be yet. And it's never happened. They were like, this is crazy. This is never going to work. They thought no one would want to do it. And it actually like completely, was super popular. So
I just interviewed a girl who, God, there's a ton of motivational stories out there, but I was so inspired by this girl. She actually came to Racing for Recovery about 12 years ago because her boyfriend was battling drug addiction. And she heard other people talking about Ironman and so forth. And from that, decided to start doing one herself. And she was at Ironman in Virginia with me last weekend. She didn't make the time cutoff per se, but her story and what she overcome with adversity prior to coming to the race and then on race day was so inspiring to me. It's not about the finish or the time. It's her mindset of doing it. She said, I'm a success by doing this just because I'm not quitting. And I felt, relieved almost that sometimes we can get so hung up in how fast somebody is going, which is a great accomplishment, but really focusing on why people are doing this sport in the first place. And it was just a thrill to talk to her doing that. She talked about her kids and how her daughter wanted her to make sure she wore a wetsuit for safety. And that the girl forgot her wetsuit on race morning and was panicking about it. So there's so many different factors as to why people are coming into triathlon. Right. And those are the stories that really are inspiring to me to keep going.
Yeah, we have one up today on our site about a guy who had cancer and had to have one of his lungs removed. And so he thought, I'm not going to be like an active runner anymore. Like I have to get my lung removed to be here for my family and I'll give up the active. Anyway, but he actually just finished St. George 70.3 like a month ago.
Wow.
It's come back. And I mean, yeah, like he didn't make the time cutoff, but he didn't quit. He and with one lung, that's pretty intense. So.
Right.
Right.
And you hear stuff like that. And for me, and this isn't obviously a criticism of anybody, it's hopefully a motivational thing. It's like you hear something like that and why somebody, can't get up and just go for a walk every day after hearing a guy with one lung that does a half Ironman. It's like, well, okay, I can move a little bit today,
Right.
Anything else you want to share about your racing or involvement with triathlete that people need to know?
No, I mean, we are based here in Boulder. Obviously, Boulder's, a hot spot for triathlon. We've been here for a long time. It's a great little community and yeah. And, I think we're going to do a lot of fun things with triathlete and people, I always say this, but people can always come talk to me. They always do because triathlon is triathlon. So everyone always comes talk to you. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it, but I have the magazine that you had us in there a few months ago, which I greatly appreciate, being in that. It's awesome to see that. But
for sure.
I appreciate you coming on today, my friend. And where else are you going to be this year? You've got Boulder coming up, but what else are you doing?
Well, yeah, so I'm doing Coeur d'Alene in 2 weeks, and you know how Ironman training goes. You're like, I can't think past that. I'm hoping to do Alcatraz later this year. That's one of my favorite races, and it was supposed to be their 40th last year. So they kind of had to defer it to this year. It is, if you've never done it, it's a great race. And then I can't race it, but I will be at Age Group Nationals in Milwaukee, which I know a lot of people are excited about. Cause we have a partnership with USA Triathlon. So we'll be there kind of doing stuff with them and it'll be fun.
You're the second person today that brought up Alcatraz. The lifeguard at the pool this morning said to me, dude, you need to do Alcatraz. And
you need to do it. Yeah.
No way. There's sharks out there. I mean, it's crazy I'm saying this, but are you worried about the creatures and swimming out there?
Yeah. I mean, so I've done it 6 times now, and I've done this because we used to live there, and I've done the swim a number of times. And I did the practice so a number of times before the race because that freaked me out. I get very stressed about sea life. It's kind of a joke how stressed out I get, but and I actually end up swimming really fast because I'm so worried about it.
Okay.
But it's actually, it's never, to be clear, there are challenges to that swim. But they're more about the waves out there and the sighting, and it's cold. That's actually much harder. You won't see any sea life. No one ever, because there's a lot of boats out there and kayakers and a lot of safety personnel. It's not, you won't actually see any sharks, to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you jump off a boat out there? Is that how? Wow. Okay.
So that's really fun too. You get to jump off a boat, and then you get to swim to shore. They the bike's really fun because they shut down roads in San Francisco. It's so you're biking through up and down. And, San Francisco is very hilly. So it's like up and down and around. You get to run out the beach, up these stairs. It's a really fun race. So
Is that's probably pretty tough to get into now, I assume, correct?
it's a lottery. So
Oh
they
boy.
opened the lottery a while. I think I just got an email. I think they like reopened it or whatever, wait list, rolling down to the wait list. So
I should have done that all those years ago when it was first out there. Well, and Kelly, I really appreciate you coming on. And again, thanks for having us in Triathlete Magazine. And I look forward to seeing you out there someday.
Sure, great. Thanks for talking.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Ignite Euphoria. Until next time, check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. Or if you or a loved one is battling drug addiction or self-destructive behaviors, give us a call, 419-824-8462. Thank you.